Chapter 6: The Family Guy. The house had a warm, lived-in feel, a stark contrast to the sterile air of the tunnels. The hum of voices, the clatter of dishes, and the faint scent of something cooking made him pause. For a moment, it almost felt like stepping back into a world that no longer existed. "This way," Stan said, leading him into a spacious common area. Stan's wife was the first to notice their arrival. She stood by the kitchen counter, her sleeves rolled up and a towel draped over her shoulder. Her smile was kind but guarded. "Stan, you've brought a guest," she said, wiping her hands. "This is..." Stan glanced back, realizing he hadn't gotten the stranger's name. The protagonist hesitated before offering a simple, "Just call me John." She nodded and introduced herself as Angela. The others followed suit: Chris, a wiry young man with sharp eyes, his wife Amy, who seemed more protective than her slight frame suggested, Meg, the bright-eyed little girl clinging to her leg, barely peeking out, Peter, who had an easygoing grin but carried himself with authority, and Steve, tall and lanky, his movements betraying a restless energy. "Grandpa, who's this?" the little girl asked, her voice small but curious. Stan knelt, ruffling her hair. "A friend, sweetheart. Someone who might be sticking around for a bit." The introductions flowed smoothly, and as the family settled back into conversation, John felt a strange sense of ease washing over him. It was the first time in a long while that he'd been surrounded by people who weren't solely focused on survival. The chatter turned lighthearted, touching on family anecdotes and bits of underground life. At some point, the conversation shifted to Steve. "I was planning to join the military before all this," Steve said, his tone both wistful and frustrated. "Figured it'd give me direction, you know?" John perked up at the mention, his own past surfacing unbidden. "What branch?" "Army," Steve replied. "Had the paperwork ready and everything before the plague shut it all down." Peter chimed in with a laugh. "He was always dragging me to shooting ranges, pestering me to teach him. Kid's a good shot, though." "Better than you," Steve quipped, earning a playful shove from his dad. John leaned back in his chair, his interest piqued. "You've got shooting experience?" "A bit," Peter said. "We've kept up practice down here." Steve made sure of that. "Yeah, but it's not just about skill," Peter added, his tone taking on a note of pride. "It's about knowing your tools, keeping them ready." Speaking of which, he turned to Stan with a sly grin. "Maybe it's time to show our guest the supply room?" Stan sighed, his expression half amused, half resigned. "Always an excuse with you, isn't there?" "Come on," Peter pressed. "Let the man see what we've got. It's not every day we meet someone who knows their way around this stuff." Stan glanced at John, who raised a brow but said nothing. Finally, Stan stood, motioning for them to follow. "All right, but don't touch anything unless I say so," he said firmly. Steve led the way, clearly eager. As they descended another short flight of stairs, John couldn't help but feel his old instincts kicking in, curiosity mingling with a hint of wariness. When Stan unlocked the door and pushed it open, John stepped inside and stopped short. The room was meticulously organized, with racks of rifles, shotguns, and pistols lining the walls. Shelves held boxes of ammunition, grenades, and other supplies. A workbench in the corner was piled with tools, half-disassembled weapons, and cleaning kits. "Damn," John muttered under his breath. Steve clapped him on the back. "Impressive, huh? We've been collecting and maintaining this stuff for years. If something goes wrong topside, we're not going down without a fight." Stan crossed his arms, his expression a mix of pride and caution. "It's not a museum. Everything here has a purpose. And we don't waste ammo unless we have to." John nodded, his eyes scanning the array of gear. "You've got a solid setup here. But tell me, when's the last time any of this was tested in the field?" Stan's face darkened slightly, but Steve stepped in with a grin. "We'll leave that to the next apocalypse, huh?" John allowed himself a small smile, but kept his thoughts to himself. The supply room spoke volumes about the family's preparation, but also about the threats they'd faced, and the ones they anticipated. John lay on his back, staring at the uneven ceiling. His eyes traced the faint shadows cast by the dim lights outside the room. Sleep had eluded him for hours, slipping through his fingers like water. The dream from earlier kept circling in his mind, half-formed images that felt both distant and vivid. His son's laughter, the weight of the necklace, the rush of water. He couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that it meant something, though what, he couldn't say. He shifted onto his side, trying to block out the snoring coming from a room down the hall. A low hum from some unseen machine seemed to vibrate through the walls, a constant reminder of the artificiality of this place. Every now and then, the house would creak, a sound that could have been the old wood settling or something far less innocent. How do they sleep here? He wondered, rubbing his eyes. After another restless stretch, he sighed and sat up. The cot creaked under his weight as he swung his legs to the floor. Maybe moving around would help. He padded to the small restroom, the dim hallway lights barely illuminating the way. The air was cool and carried the faint scent of damp earth. He splashed water on his face, letting the chill pull him from his foggy thoughts. On his way back, something caught his eye, a faint flicker of light far off in the distance. He stopped mid-step, his breath catching. At first, he thought it might be one of the electrical fixtures, but this was different. It wasn't steady. He moved toward the source, keeping his footsteps light. The hallway stretched into darkness, and the flicker became more distinct. A soft, warm glow, like fire. His pulse quickened as he neared the large viewing window that overlooked parts of the underground expanse. There, near the edge of one of the unexplored caves, was a fire pit. The flames licked upward, casting dancing shadows on the cavern walls. John squinted, trying to make out details. No figures moved nearby, but the fire itself was enough to unnerve him. His curiosity wrestled with his caution. He leaned closer to the glass, straining his eyes for any sign of movement. His hand instinctively hovered near the knife on his belt. Who lit that fire? The faint crackle of the flames reached his ears, carried on the still underground air. It mingled with the low hum of the house, creating an unsettling harmony. John's grip tightened on the window ledge as he scanned the area once more. The fire burned steadily, its light both inviting and foreboding. He took a step back, his mind racing. Was it Stan? One of the others? Or something else entirely? For now, the fire pit offered no answers, only questions and a deepening sense of unease. John froze mid-step, the image of Stan standing unnaturally still just a few feet away searing into his mind. For a moment, it was as though the man wasn't even breathing, his face partially shadowed by the dim light filtering through the corridor. The world seemed to narrow. John's heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out the faint hum of electricity. Why is he just standing there? Was he waiting for me? Did he hear me? His eyes darted to Stan's hands, then to the faint outline of the machete strapped to his side. That fire wasn't his, was it? And if it wasn't, then why isn't he saying anything? The thought hit him like a brick. I am in danger. Before John could decide whether to confront him or retreat, Stan finally spoke, his voice low and heavy with something John couldn't quite place. The fire, Stan said, his tone carrying a weight that made John's stomach churn. Wish you came another time. You should go back to bed, my friend. John watched as Stan turned toward the door. Without hesitation, the man grabbed his machete. The blade gleamed faintly, its edge wickedly sharp. A pistol was holstered at his hip, and a rifle hung across his back. Stan didn't look back as he stepped outside, his movements deliberate and purposeful. John felt his body loosen slightly, the tension shifting into something new. He's not going after me. That much was clear. But whatever was outside, whatever that fire meant, was enough to pull Stan into action, fully armed and ready. And that realization sent a chill through John. If Stan is prepared, we're in real trouble.
Hey, thank you for giving your time and attention. I truly do appreciate the opportunity to share this story with you. Please hit the like button if you liked this, of course, and comment on what stories you would like to hear or any other thoughts you have about the story. I have tons of content and I'm always open for new ideas. If you want to follow this story or want to stay updated on others, please subscribe. Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Sign. You don't know me.